Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the You Winning Life podcast. Today's guest owns and operates 6 insurance-based companies, grossing over $7 million in sales. Cody first got his start in the insurance business at 20 years old when he made $117,391.13. And we can't forget those 13 cents while still going to college full time. In 2015, he started his YouTube channel to pursue his passion of helping other insurance agents. Let me get that over. In 2015, he started his YouTube channel to pursue his passion of helping other insurance agents succeed and is now the #1 ranked channel specific to training insurance agents. He grew his agency to 6,000 policies in 1 year. In under 2 years, his insurance marketing company began making $400,000 a month. In 2018, he established the 8% Nation Insurance Wealth Conference, born from the statistic that 92% of agents will fail out of the business within their first 3 years. So please welcome speaker, coach, trainer, really awesome dude, Cody Askins, to the show.
Thank you so much, man. Wow. I need to wake up to that in the morning. That was good. I was getting, my pre-drive was getting motivated just listening to that. I'm like, dang, I got to do some more, man. That was good.
Well, I'm not as good of a hype man as our buddy Pat is. So.
No, yeah. Dude, that dude is crazy. I love it.
He's become one of my favorite new friends since that. We connected before that, and then we had a really good episode together that'll be released in the next couple of weeks. But to have a hype man in your life is a really powerful thing.
Totally, yes. He can be in my corner any day, man. He's awesome.
So I know one of the things that you do for yourself is a little bit of your own hype before you speak. So I was wondering if we can do a little bit something so for our listeners when they hear this to kind of get up their prey drive, as our buddy Coach Burt talks about. So what's that first thing that you do? And I know that you did it with us when we met at the Obsessed conference, but maybe we should do it together to get this get this episode rolling.
Dude, let's do it, man. So every time I speak, train, breakout session, in front of a room, keynote, free live training, whatever. I just did it this past weekend in Orlando. There's something I like to do to get the energy flowing, right? Because I really believe energy is everything, as we're going to talk about. And that is to get the audience's energy to participate with me. And before we started, I want you to know that I've always done it. But when I was going around and I went to 20 different cities earlier this year, I thought that energy came from the crowd. And if their energy was off, then they were just a sucky audience. And you know what? And it was just going to be a bad experience. Yeah. And I learned that by doing that, it's on us. If we impart energy on others, they will bring the energy back to us. And so one of the things I do is I say, hey, you know what we're going to do is I'm going to share with you what I do every time I speak. And that is, right? And then I get the audience to also do that back. And so I would like for you to participate and anyone listening to participate while they're listening, right? Because they're not doing it right with us now, but they may be listening later. And that is on the count of 3. Can you help me? Okay. 3, 2, 1. Yeah. I love it, man. Thank you, buddy.
My pleasure. I was looking forward to doing that with you.
Good.
So let's tackle that your energy is everything belief before we get into your backstory. So I'm a mindset person. I'm a therapist, and everything is about how, not just how you feel about things, but what you believe about things. So I'm a big fan of beliefs, and starting off with the platform of if something's not working out for you, you got to change your belief about what that means. So talk to us about this idea that your energy is everything.
Yeah. So that's something that, I've always felt like in sales, in business, I feel like energy is everything, because when my energy is right, I have a better day. I get more done. I treat people better. I'm less likely to get cranky and be a jerk. I am better in a sales presentation. I'm a better closer. I'm a better interviewer. I'm a better interviewee, right? And all the above. So I personally believe that how we start off our day and how we go throughout our day is all a decision and a choice. And I'm learning that I want to be there. Like, for instance, when I played basketball in high school and college, some games I did better than other games. And it always really irritated me. Well, I had 40 points yesterday. Why do I have 8 today? Like, what the freak's the problem? What's the issue? And I don't know that I I started to learn this a little bit in college, that for me to be at my full potential, to be at my very best during that game or that day now in business, I got to figure out, what did I do before I had the 40-point game that I can duplicate and do again to not have 8-point games. And so in every day, there's things that I like to do to start my day. And when I don't do them, I can tell.
Yeah, it's a common theme that I have when I talk to my clients, whether it's couples or individuals, whether they're my high school kids or my young professionals, is when you were doing whatever was going on back then, what were the
Mhm.
things that were working for you that you might not have put attention to that really you can bring back because you just forgot, because there's only so much bandwidth in a day that you can carry, right? So I
Yeah,
think right, that state versus trait mindset that Tony Robbins is a really, really big pusher of. But I would take it even to that simpler level, is like, are there certain things, rituals and rhythms that you put into your life that you can do to make that energetic state, that mindset state, be more consistent?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's definitely been the case. And I noticed it back when I was playing ball, that when I spent time, like most athletes don't want to wear themselves out or be tired. Well, I noticed when I got into a full sweat 2 hours before a game, I had way better games. And you would think, well, you don't want to exhaust yourself. When I got myself in a full sweat and I was doing, like, full court workouts, dribbling drills, cardio, getting in the work, um, it really just it gets your blood pumping, gets your body moving. And just like in basketball and in business and in speaking and everything else, that's why even before this podcast episode, I went out in the parking lot, took a jog around the parking lot. I was jumping up and down. It's like 40 degrees outside. I was freezing. But I was like, I've got to get my energy right. I'm in here jumped up and down. The team's in there saying, hey, let's do some push-ups. Like I know that I'm an awful interviewee on a podcast if my energy is not right.
Yeah, totally agree. Preparation, that people don't, they show up for things but they're not fully prepared. And I know so many people out there try to wing it
Mm,
when they're trying to do their best job, or they're going into sales, or trying to do this in a relationship, and they just don't do what they need to do. And one of my favorite stories that I share with some of the people I've had on this podcast is like when I have a couple come in and they've been married or they've been together for a while, and I'm like, all right, well, let me just get some background information. You've been together for 5, 6, 7, 10 years. How many therapists have you been to before me? And they're like, no, we haven't gotten anybody. Okay. How many books have you read on relationships or couples work or marriage, right? None. Okay. YouTube videos? None. Talks with your minister, pastor, rabbi, imam, spiritual guru, past, present life, incarnation? Okay. So you're saying you want X, but you've done none of Y.
mm,
Now we know where to start.
that's good.
Right?
I
I
like
can't I can't handle your problems until you're ready to commit solving the effort and the motivation and the consistency you've put into that. So
that.
let's go a little bit old school first.
All right, let's do it.
And let's talk a little bit about your backstory, how you ended up. I know you've already mentioned being an athlete and playing basketball, but from that middle school, high school you to now, how did you decide, how did you decide that this is where you wanted to be? How did you decide this is your purpose and your passion? And what led you to get there from back then?
Gosh, that's a really, really good question. I would say that there's I think every person has these moments in their life where something goes really good, or someone tells you, man, you have a great personality, or man, you have a presence about you, or man, you're, you know, very talented, or man, you're a good salesperson, or you know what I mean? When we hear these things from people along the way, I heard those types of things from an athletic standpoint, even from a speaking standpoint, like speaking at graduation, stuff like that, that really made me feel like I was meant to do, as Tim Story says, I was meant to do something great. I was meant to do something more. And I've always known it. I used to have the mentality, and I wish I could go back. Maybe I don't, but sometimes I do, that as a kid, I felt like I could do anything. I felt like I could achieve anything. I feel like I could be a professional athlete in, freaking cricket without even playing it. But back then I didn't execute on it the way I do in business now. And so if I would have known what I do now and how would have the daily habits and routine and the actual discipline and the mindset and everything I have now, that I can still do better, I can still get more of and be way better than I am currently. If I had those things 12, 15 years ago, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing,
So where did that original installation of the belief in yourself, of your capabilities, in addition to people around you telling you had these talents and traits,
yeah,
what was it like for you to actually believe that? Because the average teenager, especially today, self-esteem, self-doubt, how many likes do I get? How many followers do I have? And we can talk about that later as a person who has a significant amount of followers on their social media. But that many years ago, before social media was, right, it was kind of maybe at its beginning of its heyday, but what was that like for you to actually truly believe what your capabilities were and how you saw that in comparison maybe to other people around you?
Yes. So I grew up in a very positive household. Growing up, I had a very, very fortunate childhood. Not everyone is as fortunate as I was. And I grew up in a home where, my father moved up the corporate ladder over the course of a couple decades, to where he's a brand new insurance agent door knocking to he's a general manager over 7 states with hundreds of people working for him, And so I saw those things. I saw how hard he worked, my mother was always super encouraging and always there for me, my dad would always say, as a kid, Cody, never let anyone outwork you. I don't care if it's in business today or if I was a kid playing a sport or showing up at a game. He would just always say, hey, never let anyone outwork you. And that was his motto. And, and also as a new insurance agent, though, because my father was very successful and still is, and it was almost, and my college basketball coach told me, hey, you've got to, I'm not going to play you as much because you have a silver spoon in your mouth, And so those things, even though it was good, there were some things that happened along the way that really drove me to do what I knew was possible and to really prove some people wrong along the way. And so, yeah, very amazing childhood, but there were some things that were like, as a brand new insurance agent, 19, he's only successful because his dad, things like that. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I'm on a mission that, yes, it was a benefit to have a successful father, but I'm on a path that I'm to the point now where I don't care what anybody thinks. Like, I'm committing to being the best me I can, help as many people as I can. And we're still super small potatoes for where we will be.
But this chip on your shoulder, right? In a way?
Yeah.
The stories that I usually hear of people who have chips on their shoulders are people who went through a lot of adversity. They went through a lot of struggles. They went through a lot of challenges, right? They weren't believed in. They were doubted. There were haters around them, whether it was an internal thing or an external thing. How were you able to balance having that positive family experience and then still find a healthy chip on your shoulder?
Internally, within my warm market, it's been positive. It's been uplifting. Externally, that hasn't always been the case. And so I used to worry about what people think, someone doesn't like me, or, hateful comment or an email or a phone call or whatever. I think you just become immune to those things over time. And I do have a chip on my shoulder. I've got a incredible work ethic and drive and passion and a belief that I see people do things in life, and instead of getting jealous, right, I'm like, good for them. I know I will be there too. And that's just the way I think.
So it's interesting because in my building, there's probably right behind this wall, right behind me is a therapist. Downstairs, right below me is a therapist. There's another 2 floors down, right? So this building probably that I'm in probably has 15 to 20 other therapists. And I see none of them as competition. Because number one, I believe that whoever's supposed to end up with me will end up with me, just the way the universe sorts that out. But two, like you said, I'm just thankful that people are just going to whoever they need to go to. And if those persons aren't going to serve them powerfully the level to that they need to be served, then they're going to end up
Yeah.
looking somewhere else. And, that's going to just sort itself out that way. But um, to have this balance of, like, for me, my chip on my shoulder was that I grew up in a pretty decently loving home also, but
Yeah.
the love kind of got challenged when my parents got divorced. That started off
Mm.
like probably when I was eighth grade, all the trauma and drama started, and it didn't end until after I graduated high school. And I went from being like, this normal middle of the road kid to like having all this chaos at home. And school was awful for me.
Wow.
I slept through classes. I wasn't a bad kid. I never did drugs. I didn't really skip class except to like go be social, not to like to be defiant. But I barely graduated high school with a 1.8 GPA, which I'm excessively proud of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this idea of like, what can I do down the road? What did I want to do? Who was I? Was a struggle for me until much later. And a lot of it became out of a little bit of social pressure, a little bit of good mentoring to figure out, like, one of the things I do love and I enjoy working is when I was working with students. And then I worked at a year at Princeton University doing student programming, was when one of my students even told me, hey, you should go do therapy because you're already doing therapy unofficially
Mm-hmm.
here on campus. But and I grew up around a community where people were really, really, really wealthy and had, Range Rovers at 15, 16 years old. And I'm like, I'm the scholarship kid when I switched
Yeah.
from public school to private school, and worked my way and been on my own since I was 17, 18 years old to build my thing. So I didn't have like this like mindset of like, it was just really survival for me until the
Yeah.
last 3 years where entrepreneurship and got connected to this program, business finishing school, which is where I met Matt Monero. That all this changed for me, that I didn't realize I'm not just a therapist and a healer, but I'm also entrepreneurial.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
that activated a lot of different mindset for me of really eradicating any victimhood that I still carried, really seeing myself playing at a bigger level, which we're going to get into, as this interview goes a little bit forward. But I want to really have people out there hear what you're talking about, and what I'm talking about is this chip on the shoulder can come from a healthy place. It doesn't have to come from an unhealthy place.
Exactly. Exactly. I think it's such a good point too, because it's natural to, because, and I actually believe that if you're doing it as a negative thing, internally, it's probably going to wear off, like it's not going to last decades. And so, yeah, I think I'm doing it for other people. I'm doing it for me because I know when I'm not moving and shaking and earthquaking, uh, which I just made up, I get, I wouldn't say depressed, but I get, bored.
Hmm. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So let's go specifically into your industry a little bit, because the reputation, I have this joke that if I hear from a friend that I haven't heard from in 5, 10, 15 years, they're probably selling insurance now, and they're going through
Yeah.
their, right,
Yeah.
their Rolodex. And so people have
That's
this
good.
fear of like insurance in general, right?
Mhm.
And specifically to work with an agent on the nitty gritty of getting their stuff handled, because it's a very vulnerable field, right?
For
You either have
sure.
to talk about how much money you're making, how much money you want to save, what can happen for you at end of life, what's your medical scenarios going on,
Yep.
all those things. So over the years, I've had to break through my preconceived notions of what true insurance benefits can be. And I'm not talking about the benefits of your package, but how it can be beneficial to your life.
Totally.
So what are some of the myths that you find that you have to dispel? And what are some of the various types of insurance that you feel are so important that you think, even if you're just getting started as a young 21 to 30-year-old young emerging adult, that you have
Yeah.
to, do need to make that investment into?
Yeah. I would say some myths, or it does, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a long drawn out sales process, um, you can still get insurance without doing things you may not want to do. If you don't want to go pee in a cup and get stuck with a needle, nowadays you actually don't have to. There's ways around it. There's other product types. Um, it doesn't have to be incredibly boring, uh, which is another, I mean, average age of an insurance agent is 59 and a half, which is, I'm not saying 59-year-olds are boring, but it's an old fashioned industry. Right. And then I would say from a product standpoint, I'm extremely, and always have been and always will be, passionate about life insurance. It's I heard Ramiz Hakeem from North Star say this. He's an amazing individual. He said that life insurance is the only product on planet Earth that you can buy that you will never physically be able to use yourself. And I'm like, that's powerful. That's good. And so it's just something I've always been passionate about. I've seen how it's helped people and families. Nobody wants to have to pass the hat at a funeral. And it's one of the most simplest things you can do. And it doesn't have to be about, my friend is trying to sell me life insurance. If something happens to somebody in my family or my friends or my warm market, and they did not have life insurance, I'm going to blame myself. Yeah. Just because it can be freaking $10,
Yeah, I remember my first policy. I think I was paying $23 a month just to have whatever it was, $250,000. And I was like, I think it was post-graduate school. So I was 26, 27 years old. And it wasn't for me, right? Because I was never going to get it. It was at that time I got married young, and it was to cover anything that my wife at the time would have needed. And now I have it for, transferred over to my mom, and my mom's near retirement age. So God forbid if anything happens to me. And she never wants to have this conversation. I tried to have a conversation with her about insurance and to go through with her. She just started crying. I can't handle it. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we need to talk about this. Right. And I doubled my policy since that conversation. But I really want to impress upon people out there. And I know you talk about this. I know Matt Monero talks about this in his book, You Need More Money, right? The importance of taking care of the people that you love doesn't just come in this lifetime.
Yeah, there's a Transamerica commercial out there that's been out for years, and it talks about how life insurance it's life insurance. It's not death insurance. It's to help those people in the event that you're no longer there. It isn't about me. If I was going to buy life insurance on me, for me, I would never do it.
Right. So we love the people, hopefully, in our lives more than we even love ourselves.
Exactly.
So taking this into the next thing about sharing this wisdom, sharing this passion that you have and helping other people out there, you pioneered in a way, right? What you're doing using YouTube and the way that Gary Vee did it for wine and for everything else, right?
Yep.
So talk to us about what that was like, what you learned from that experience, especially when you started working with other professional agents, in addition to helping your insurance clients with understanding more of this.
Yeah, so I started on YouTube December 28th of 2015, and I didn't know what the point of it was. I think a lot of good things happen in life when you're doing things that because you want to do them, not because you feel like you need to do them, And so I was putting up YouTube videos. Hey, I made $8,000 this week, and you can too using these 7 easy steps. Stay with me, follow along, take some notes, and you know what I mean? So I was doing that when I was running a local mentorship program, helping some local agents. And I put up videos every week, several videos a week. And I didn't really know how it was going to be perceived. And there was some early, a lot of comments, oh, you're just following Grant Cardone, or you're trying to be like Gary Vee, or, oh, here comes another expert, or your material sucks, or your content's awful, the stuff you get, which I laugh at now. But I was just consistent about it, and I didn't try to monetize it for 13 months. Like, that wasn't the goal. And I actually didn't intend on actually monetizing it, any of it ever, which is amazing to me now. But I just had agents across the country, in Australia, Puerto Rico, Canada, all over the world, reaching out saying, hey, can we buy leads from you? Hey, can we join your team? Hey, can you train me? Hey, can you help me? Hey, and I get messages every single day on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook where someone's like, hey, I'm struggling. I don't want to be a part of the 92%. I am this close to failing. Can I just talk to you for 3 minutes? And I took a call yesterday where I talked to a guy for, it's supposed to be 3 minutes. Obviously, it didn't bother me. It turned into like 20, maybe 30. But he's in Florida and he's struggling and he's really close to failing. And he messaged me today saying, "Hey, I woke up with a new motivation, excitement, energy." And that's why I do what I do. My wife handles all of our finances. I couldn't tell you how much money I have. I have no idea. And I really don't care. I know I don't have enough to buy a jet yet, which I'm annoyed about, but whatever. Right.
Right.
But I don't do it if I did it for the money, I would be like, always know how much money I have in a bank account. How much do I've invested in real estate? How much this, or how much do we, you know what I mean? What do I get paid this month personally? Like, I don't even know. And I actually prefer not to know because I don't want to get wrapped up in the money or do things just for the money. So there's a long answer to explain why we started doing what we do.
And I've heard a lot of people talk about this, that on the entrepreneurial journey, people make the money the main motivator, even if they went into it originally for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And, there's always that, the great philosopher, Dr. Cube, who says, check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Usually he's the great
That's
psychologist. He's a great psychologist in my practice, but in this circumstance, he'll be the great philosopher. But money is important, right? And we know this because if you can't invest in yourself, you can't invest in your business, then you can't, right? For us, we're in very similar but very different helping fields because we're providing safety, security, and something for the future. At what point does that money goal really do matter? Because there is the struggle. There's the early entrepreneurial struggle, right? I know. I think what was the number that your first year that you said there was like a small amount, right?
Yeah. Talking about my initial first year income as an
Yeah.
agent. Yeah. It's $117,391.13. Yeah.
Right. And most people would kill for that.
Yeah.
Right. And if they made that every single year for the rest of their life, they will never complain.
And you know what? It should have been 200. I stopped after 8 months and started focusing on school and basketball. And it's not that I regret that, but I look back now and been like, if that would have been 250, that would have been a way better story.
But would you have experienced the contrast between trying to figure out the balance of your life to know really what's important to you, to know whether because I've had athletes on this show and I have plenty of my clients are like, oh, when I grow up, right, they might be middle school varsity, junior varsity athletes. And I'm like, well, what else do you want to do? And they're like, oh no, I'm going all in on getting drafted. And I'm like, have you been scouted yet at 14, 15 years old? Because if you're not, then the likelihood of that happening is already, right? This is 2019. It's not 1992.
Yeah.
Right? You would already have a highlight reel. You would already have, do you have did you make your own highlight reel that's on YouTube? No. Okay. So let's talk nitty gritty, right? So I wonder for you and what I want to have other people out there really hear is that you actually were playing ball. You were actually, right?
Yep.
So this was
And
already
I thought the
happening for you.
same. I thought the same thing, by the way.
But you were playing college ball.
Yeah. But I didn't think that when I was playing at a little Bible college, but yeah, it probably at 12, 13, 14 years old, I'm sure I thought I was going to be the next, Larry Bird.
So when did you decide to go all in? What was that moment? What was that decision? What was that conversation?
Business wise?
Yeah, to drop all that other stuff and your focus. Not that you weren't playing recreational, but like when you said like, okay, this is it. This is when I got to get serious on this business side versus maybe looking at sports as a hobby, not as a potential future.
Yeah, I would say I knew pretty early in college that, this wasn't going to be anything I did after college, except for an occasional church league. I'm not that good in the grand scheme of things. I'm quick. I'm almost always the fastest dude on the floor, but I'm not, I'm not Russell Westbrook. I knew pretty early on that business started to interest me. I was an intern. I was watching other people do well, but I was also watching a lot of people fail because insurance, I believe, is the toughest industry in the world. And I was seeing people succeed or do well or inconsistent, or this guy's here 1 week and 3 months later he failed and he quit. And I'm like, this isn't that hard, And for whatever reason, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to go in full time. And I told my dad, I'm like, you know what? I think I can make $100,000 my first year, even going to school and playing basketball. Who cares? And he's like, okay. And I said, you know what? I'm going to type it up and we're both going to sign it and I'm going to put it up on the wall in my cubicle and I'm going to look at it every day. And I also kept track, every week, every month. I went to buy my one of my first cars and I was making $9,000 a month. And the, people at the car dealership thought I was insane. They're like, yeah, we have to see a pay stub. We're not selling you a car.
Right.
And I don't know. The trigger flipped. It was a goal, and there's something, Bert talks about this too, when there's something I want to achieve and I just make the decision to achieve it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those people where it's like, nothing can get in my way. I mean, it's just, they could have said, we're closing down this office and you got to go. And I would have been like, I'm working somewhere because I already made the goal,
And that's a constant theme for you, right? This goal setting that you really try to
Mm-hmm.
instill in others.
Yes, it really, really is. Yeah, it's a big part of what we do. I believe that's why I write my goals down every day. I believe you have to have a goal. You got to be going somewhere. You got to have, if you don't have you're not shooting for something, you're not going to get anywhere. And it's something I've kind of always done. And then I did it that first year, and I was like, gosh, if I do anything ever again without a goal, I'm a moron. Like, it worked so well, So now, and I've also learned that goals are important. They've helped along the way, but I still thought too small, at every turn. For me to say I want to make $100,000 at 19, 20 years old is cool, but it was just small. It was almost too easy for me.
Yeah. And I find that the goals, and Grant talks about this a lot, is that the whole theme of the 10X rule is that, right, we typically, when we set a goal, we kind of have this idea, like this big, grandiose, crazy, big, hairy, audacious goal. And then we tend to kind of wean it back a little bit. Oh no, I'm not good enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not capable enough. I don't have enough resources. No one's going to really want this. And then whatever effort we put in, we end up setting levels of intensity or commitment that will lead us to getting even less than that secondary goal.
Yep. That's so easy to do in anything, because we get behind on the goal. We start to play mind games with ourselves, and the next thing you know, we lower the goal. I need to be setting goals when I'm in a crazy, hyped up, aggressive mode, and if I am not that way the next day, I don't need to let it affect what the goal was that I set.
But most people out there get stuck in the negative momentum. And I think that they let this go on for so long, like that story I told about the couple, right? 5, 7, 10 years of a relationship of negative momentum. And their goal, they didn't stand under the marriage canopy saying like, man, I really hope this relationship sucks 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
So the trick, I think, that people talk about, right? I'm not sure if it was Grant who said this or someone else, but the difference between those people who set their goal once a year around New Year's and then every person who writes it every single night, you have 365% exponential more success.
That's good. Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
And then you break that momentum because you can start over because you're consciously and consistently being aware of it. So I know one of the things that are challenging in your field that can carry over to pretty much every other field. And I never knew this and realized this as a therapist until the last couple of years, has been that we are all selling something.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not going to come to me and I don't close that phone call to convince them, even if they're already a strong referral from another practitioner, right? Or what we would call a hot lead, not even a warm lead, a hot lead, that I still have to close them and convince them to come spend their money with me versus another practitioner. And I know one of the things that you are very big about training is cold calling and scripting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So why are those two things so important? Why do so many people, I don't want to say make fun of it, but maybe even call it cliche? Like, that's so cliche. And so you're going to say the same thing to me that you're going to say to somebody else. And I even had someone call me 2-3 hours ago who their company called me 6 months ago. And I'm like, yeah, I already, I know it's coming because I can tell when the script is coming. So why is it so important? How do you avoid sounding like that dude who I said, take me off his calling list because he didn't give me value in the first 15 seconds? And we're like, so why is this really such an important and powerful skill for everybody to learn, no matter what field you're in?
Yeah, I mean, when you believe in something, I could read a script and you wouldn't even know it. I also believe that a lot of us have bad habits, and we don't have to go into it, but there's several tips for making phone calls that most people in my industry are making the wrong call. As in what they're saying is something I used to say that I wish I would have known what I know now. You know, I would say that most people start off the phone call incorrectly. So if I was calling Jason, right? Hello, I'm looking for Jason, or are you Jason, or is Jason there? Is wrong. I know it's you, Jason, right?
Yes.
Which one's more confident? If I'm like, oh, I'm looking for Jason and you're busy, you're like, dude, you got the wrong number, man. Where if I say, hey, Jason, yeah, this dude must know me, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
Jason. That's one thing that's drives me nuts. And I used to make that mistake too. Yeah.
So there's a lot of bad habits, a lot of bad muscle memory, emotional muscle memory.
Totally. Yeah. I still make some of those mistakes myself from time to time. If when I even make live dials, because I go on, well, I was doing a live dial in Jamaica on video one time, and it went really well. I was calling leads as they came in, or sometimes I'll even just literally live cold call a data list, like not even a lead. And we all have bad habits. I catch myself doing things I shouldn't do or saying things I shouldn't say if I don't have a script in front of me. So even now, I at least have it sitting there. So if I'm like, oh crap, where was I at? I know where to go.
Yeah. So how do people really get good at these things? Where do they get really good information? Because there's so many people out there like with, oh, if you follow this script, you're going to have six figures in 6 months. Or if you just did these 100 cold calls a day, you're going to have. So what are people missing that they need to hear?
Yeah, it takes anything you would want to learn is on YouTube for starters. Most of it is a time thing. I'm not going to be great at racquetball today. I've never played racquetball in my life. Can I be great at racquetball a few years from now? Probably so. Most people just need some time. They need to execute. They need to be disciplined. If 100 calls a day is the number, then they need to do it. And guess what? In 3, 6 months, 9 months, you may be freaking slaying it on the phone. And so most people, they want the gratification, the immediate success, and they don't want to put in the time. They don't want to put in the work. I know that I have to put in the time and the work. We're scaling up our sales team. We've always had two, and this is in relation to the phone. I believe every company's most valuable asset is a sales team. Because even if we didn't have our following, we still have a sales team. I've got a lot of companies and relationships. And when I run my P&L and financial statements, and my wife does all that, on our profit, we do a profit and loss on my sales team and a profit and loss on the other avenues that we receive revenue from. Like if a company just has an order form, they don't talk to anybody. I make a better margin on my sales team than other areas of my business. So I just learned this like a few months ago, maybe 30 days ago, honestly. We've always had 2 to 5 salespeople. We've got 8 now, and I'm going to as many as I can get because I'm like, a salesperson should never be a liability. Salespeople should never cost you money. If you have the right things in place, a salesperson creates extra income for the business. And I don't care if I got to buy another building. I am putting as many freaking salespeople as I can in this. My goal is to have 40 salespeople by next 8% Nation.
So is it safe to say for people listening out there, if they have a sales team and the sales team is not at a bare minimum paying their own salaries,
yeah,
they need to do something different?
Oh, totally. My sales team they're paying for their own salaries. They're covering their commission. They're covering their dialer cost, and they're covering. I spend about $100, pretty close to about $100 per day per rep, just in ad spend to funnel them leads like crazy. And even with everything else we have, and they're paying for all that. I'm profiting. I'm at at least a 30 to 50% margin on every single one of them. And when I learned that, I'm like, gosh, why didn't I know that sooner?
Yeah. And that goes into the whole small business mindset, right? I'm a therapist, as we discussed, and I don't have an office staff. I handle everything myself, my emails, my scheduling, my calling, my marketing. And when I started doing a business finishing school a few years ago, Rick Sapio, the one who created it, it's all about simplicity, probability, and leverage as his core values. And the leverage is, who do you need to send this out to do? Because if my rate per hour is here, and I'm going and doing my laundry, which I no longer do, it's $17 to do my laundry, and I can see 2 clients during that time, I'm already right. Or
Right.
Billy, right, who's doing all my social media podcast stuff, who does Evan and a bunch of other of our friends. I'm not a video editor, I'm not a sound editor, I'm not a podcast editor. The money, I have to see 1 or 2 hours worth of work to cover him for my entire month.
Yeah.
The same thing applies definitely in the sales, like you just said.
I used to do all this myself for probably the first 19, 20 months of the whole business in general. And my company doubled the first month I hired an employee. And I look back at that now and just laugh. But also, going back to the sales team really quick, if a company is struggling to get the I'll come to them for free and video it just for the heck of it, just because I would enjoy working with their team. I don't even care, but they just pay for my travel. I'll come and help them. But I'm learning the things that we need to do to help our successful sales team. So literally the last 20 months or so, I wasn't involved in my sales team at all. Well, we were seeing our sales numbers of our sales team at a slow decline. So I moved the entire team outside my office. I'm adding people. We're doing 2 meetings a day where I train them. We do energy together and we role play or play some sales training games, which you've probably seen. And I'm talking, everything I can do we're adding music, everything we can do to like totally turn this place around. And the culture is ridiculous. They're fired up, and we just had the best month ever inside sales team wise.
And so many businesses out there just leave that to chance. Like you said, you just kind of let it go. You hire the right people. There's no training. There's no workshops. There's no scrums. There's no weekly meetings. And I know the exponential growth. Again, it's going back to goal setting. It's going back to planning. It's going back to mindset. It's going back to motivation, all of those things. And one of the struggles that I have since I've been a professional and then being involved in more in alternative medicine and then jumping into this entrepreneurship world, and I see this with so many fields, is that workshop training attention deficit disorder syndrome, right? We bounce from conference to conference, workshop to workshop, training to training, hoping that the next one we go to is going to give us that silver bullet answer about finally how to succeed, finally how to make that
instead of just doing it. Like
instead of just doing it.
Most of the time, we know what we need to do. We don't do it. We may talk ourselves out of it. We may kick a can down the road, or we may need someone else to tell us. But I'm not saying that I don't love conferences and training, everything else, because I do, networking, everything else. But we typically know the answer that solves the problem.
And the workshops that we tend to go to are the type of people that we think that we want to be more like, and we're lacking those traits or attributes or aspects of ourselves. So by hanging out with them is kind of like earning and owning an unsolved part of our own personal puzzle. So if you're more attracted to like a Grant or or a Gary Vee or an Oprah or an Ellen or a Brene Brown, there's something in our own journey that we think we're lacking. So by trying to be around that person, we have that illusion of being whole, at least while we're with them, until we go back home and don't integrate that. And the work is to integrate it. So I wonder, as a challenge to people who are listening, that if they have gone in the last 24 months, if you've gone to a workshop, if you've gone to a seminar, if you've gone to a conference, anything where you felt that there's something specific that you're hoping, you don't know what that answer is, but there's something specific you're hoping will change the game for you. what were the assumptions that if you really sat down and thought this out, that if I get this one thing, everything will be solved? What's that one thing that you think needs to be handled for you? And then just go
Mhm.
find that expert in the field of that specific area and just
Yeah.
shadow that person, hire that person, devour that one person's things. Don't just keep jumping around, but also take it to someone like me from the mindset, mental health, psychology side. Take it to someone like you who can do a very specific nitty training on that business side,
Absolutely.
right?
That's good. No doubt.
So you're about to hit 30,
Yes,
a few
sir.
months away from that.
I'm getting
And
old, man. I need to slow down.
don't hurt yourself. So I
Right.
mean, I know you're already sitting down, so it must be catching up to you. So
Mhm.
So we've talked about some of the things you've achieved. We haven't talked about everything you have achieved, and we certainly haven't had the time and won't have the time yet today to talk about everything you will achieve that you don't even know yet that's on the radar for you. But we talked a few minutes ago about playing too small for too long. And one of the things that you decided to do was this 8% Nation conference.
Yeah, that was most people don't know. There was a couple reasons I started the conference, and one of them I maybe never said on video. I'm looking at the video guys over there. I'm kind of curious. One was because I was sitting at 10X, 2 in Vegas, front row, and I'm like, I don't know of anything in the insurance industry that's not put on by someone trying to recruit you or put on by an insurance carrier that you can go to that is fun, energetic, exciting, motivational, great networking, awesome content, and that brings everyone together from our industry. And I said to myself, I really need to do this. I need to do something like this. And I'm ashamed to say I did think about it for a few months, and I revisited the idea when I heard about another conference that was similar to what I was just talking about. It wasn't really for everyone, and I was sitting in the pool. Is it Memorial Day that's in May? Yeah, I always get Memorial Day and Labor Day
Yeah.
confused. And I'm sitting in the pool. I'm talking to my dad. We're at the country club, and I'm like, you know what? I was talking about this conference. He's like, you ought to throw a conference. And I'm like, I've been thinking about that for a couple months. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do or how I'm going to figure it out, but I'm making a decision right now. I'm going to throw a conference. And so I've learned that the best decisions for me, it may not be true for everybody, but for me, if if I think about something, I don't do it. Time kills all deals. Like if I know something's right to do and it furthers my mission, I'm gonna just take action and do it. I'm not gonna like play this game of like put fog in my head up with ideas, you know. So that was one reason. Also, I've always been attracted to speaking, public speaking, because I've watched the Brian Tracy's, the Zig Ziglars. I grew up, you know, listening to audiobooks early on in sales, all that kind of stuff. I actually grew up in church. My grandfather was a Baptist pastor for 50 years. He just recently passed this year. And I've always been someone that when I grow up, you know, if basketball doesn't work out, I'd like to be a public speaker. And so I maybe have partly I knew our industry needed it. Partly I knew I would get a ton of attention, and partly I knew it would fill my need to get on the stage.
So there is a spiritual side to all of this for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's just something I think anybody can do whatever they want. You know, I think anybody, you know, if I want to speak on stages, you know, why the freak can I not speak on the stage? Right. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say my first conference ever that I spoke at, just so that I could prepare for my own conference. You know, I paid 19 grand. I had 3 booths. I was a big sponsor of it. And I went and got a keynote, you know, I'm like, okay, this is, not only did I get a ton of business out of it, a ton of networking out of it, I still have clients and relationships I didn't have because of that. We had a ton of people from there sponsor our event. I got the 19 grand back, and it ain't even close. And I got to speak. And I'd never spoke on stage before, instead of like, you know, a graduation at a little Christian school in front of, you know, 72 people, you know, right? So it was, if anything, it was training, and I know I made the money back, but most people are scared to like pull the trigger or write that check, or And that really, that's another topic, but that really started when my wife and I decided, even before the conference, to buy a bigger home. We had to come up with like a $70,000 down payment or something like that. And doing that forced me to do something and pull the trigger on a large sum of money that I had never done before. And now it's like, dude, it's 20 grand.
I had such a similar story that a buddy of mine took 2 years. He's a chiropractor. And we both do this really incredible integrative healing modality called neuro-emotional technique, which is the bread and butter of my practice. And just a quick 2-second thing for if you haven't heard of it and other people out there haven't heard of it, it's a mind-body tool that gets rid of self-sabotaging reoccurrent stress patterns that can turn into anxiety, stress, depression, basically anything that limits you from being fully proactive versus a fight or flight response and reactivity. And it could be around money. It could be about relationships. It could be about any type of stress and trauma that you can imagine. And for 2 years, my buddy tried to convince me to go to hang out with Rick Sapio and do this program, Business Finishing School. And I finally committed. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to cost me $1,000 for 2.5 days. And I never spent, right? Mine is like, I'm not getting a certificate out of this. I'm not getting continuing education out of this. And I'm not an entrepreneur. What the heck am I doing? And then by the end of the weekend, I committed to the curriculum program, which was an extra, but all right. It's a 4-year curriculum program, modules and accountability groups and everything. So not only that, now I'm like, oh my God, this is a car payment on top of it. But within a number of months, I had such clarity on who I want to work with, what clients I no longer want to see, my core values for my business, my mission statement for my business. And within X amount of months, my business went up 35%. And I got rid of clients. So I'm like, holy crap, what have I been waiting so long for? And then since then, it's been, I just, it was April. I flew out to Nashville to Coach Bert's Person of Interest thing. And that cost me to be in and out within one day more than that whole entire weekend cost me more than, right? So I see that gradual of like, it's so much easier when you start that momentum of investing in yourself, even if you don't see the original, how it can possibly work out for you.
Yes. It always does. It always, it's always worked out, you know. I'm in Bert's 25K club. We just because our QuickBooks lady quit, so we just joined JD Frost's President's Club for $36K a year. I got my own virtual CFO now. You know, it's freaking cool. We spent
back to outsourcing again, also, and you have to pay for this anyway.
Exactly.
But
yeah, I was paying her probably 30 grand, you know, so why not pay him 36 and he actually knows what he's doing.
And you have a whole team of people
and I can talk to him every week. Yeah. And a whole team. Exactly. Yeah. There's just been so much of that where it's like, you can't do it on your own. So you need a team, but you don't have to do everything in house too, though. I used to think that like I love Cardone. I'm probably most like him just because I watch so much of his stuff, but I don't think you need everything in house.
Right. I agree. And also the leverage of a network, because from there, you're going to meet someone else or you're going to meet someone else. And Coach was the person, Coach and Eric, who is his main guy, introduced me to Evan. And funny enough, I won a VIP ticket to Evan's to the Obsessed conference. So, and Evan and I were already talking, and he's like, a week before, he's like, so I need an answer in 2 hours. Can you come? So I just picked up in the middle of the weekend. I'm like, all right, let me come to Dallas. And then I met you, and I met Rocky, and I already knew Matt, and I already knew Coach. But now I have this, and Pat I finally met in person. But I already had this introduction to so many people that were on this stage. I'm like, I don't think I've ever been at a conference that hasn't been part of this initial group where I knew 50%, of the people already, whether I've already heard about them or I was friendly with them. And now to have every single one of those people have been or will be scheduled. Judge is going to be on next week. Matt's already been on. You increase your community of bringing value to each other as well.
I was on Evan's stage at Obsessed through Bert. We spoke at each other's conference. Bert spoke at 8%, but before that he spoke at 10X, so it's like, yeah, it's crazy.
Right. And I met Coach through Matt at Matt's book launch at 10X in Vegas.
Wow.
So it all goes.
So you were at 10X2 in Vegas as well?
Yeah. And that all started with me
That's
going
crazy.
to that one weekend, having the incredible, ridiculous pure luck of sitting next to Matt while he was just in attendance of business finishing school. He later had a partnership with Rick in it, and then sold back his thing as he started to do this new thing with Judge, or before this new partnership with Judge Graham started. But to just be able to have the fortune of sitting next to Matt, who's,
Yeah.
as you know, is just really such an incredible human being and has become a friend and a mentor to me. I never played at that level before.
Mm-mm.
I never played at that level. And I remember 6 months ago, they do it twice a year. Matt was speaking about his whole torch process. So I was there the night before, and everybody was getting set up, and we were just checking in. And I remember Matt and Rick were just sitting there, and I went over to say hello and just check in, and they both gave me a bear hug at the same time. And I'm thinking, holy crap, this is the most valuably expensive hug I've ever gotten in my life. Rick's worth probably $2 and Matt's doing incredible stuff. And here I'm like, I'm this kid who graduated 1.8 GPA. I have a small office in Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, right? And I
Yeah.
have a relationship with these people, and it all started off as that original investment with
That's
everybody.
awesome.
So,
That's so cool. That's so
right.
cool.
So two quick more things before we wrap up, and I know our time is getting there. So what are your top one or two tips for listeners out there who want to build a following of people, not just about the numbers, and we can get into a whole nother conversation about not building it for the numbers and to get the likes and the self-esteem stuff,
Yeah.
but who wanted to build an engagement with their community?
Yeah. You need to be doing something you're passionate about, that you feel like you can help others with. And you need to be consistent. I talked about this at my very first keynote ever, Insurance News Net in Chicago, and the one I paid 19 grand at. And and on that, I talked about like consistent, caring content. And we have now it's silly to say because it's so small, but the largest YouTube channel that we've found for training insurance agents, putting out education to help insurance agents. We're not trying to recruit anybody. It's just training content. And in our space, it's like really big, but it's only 11,000 people. It ain't that big. And we've done it because, yeah, we probably have more videos than anybody else. So go figure. But we've done it by putting out consistent content that people care about. And we've done it by adding extremely talented individuals to our team. Dylan's been with me for, like a year and a half, amazing video dude. Sneaky Keithy's been here for several months now. That's his Instagram and nickname. And we've just leveled up. And I realized, I can't do it all myself, and my videos by myself, thumbnails and graphics, all that kind of stuff. It was awful. So now they're better.
Back to leveraging, right?
Yeah.
So my last question for you, which was the curveball question I kind of gave you a hint about before we started talking, is the following. And I call it my on one foot question. So right, I happen to be Jewish, but you're saying how you grew up in the church, and it's
Yeah.
right on one foot. Can you teach right on one foot? So if you only had 2 minutes to share your wisdom with someone that you would never ever meet again, what would you say to them?
Wow. I would say that I think if I make it more based on helping anyone, I think the way you start off your day, your daily habits, your success habits, your routine helps create that energy. It helps create the discipline. It helps create the consistency, and it helps in a lot of other areas of business in general. I don't care if you're insurance. I think most people in my industry struggle with the mindset and the discipline to just pick up the freaking phone. 92% of agents fail, not because they didn't know enough about insurance, not because, they didn't have the sales experience, because I didn't either. Not because, their boss isn't, not because their boss is a jerk, or because, they're whatever their situation is. It all has to do with the fact that they made a decision to quit because they didn't want to do those things because successful people do what unsuccessful people are unwilling to do. I believe everyone has a choice in their life to be wildly successful average, below average, or be a quitter. And I believe anyone, you could ask me, hey, Cody, would you rather the best salesperson in the world that's, only gets to see one person a week, or the worst salesperson in the world that gets to see 10 people a week? I'm still taking the worst salesperson in the world, because they're going to get better along the way because they're seeing more people, which means they must be working harder. This person must be lazy. So if I had to help someone just in general, anyone can do whatever they want to do, right? Most of us think too small, but I really believe a lot of it starts with the mental side, the mental game, the discipline, the routine, the success habits, the goal setting. And I had an agent reach out to me recently and said, hey, I'm struggling. I'm scared of the phone. I don't want to pick it up. What do you recommend? And I said, try going and running around the office, doing some push-ups, doing some jumping jacks, get your energy flowing. It probably won't be as hard to pick it up then.
Yeah. One of my favorite statements, it's Esther Hicks from the Laws of Attraction world, but I share this with my clients all the time, is never solve a problem from a place that feels like crap. Because you're automatically in a fight or flight stance and you're just in survival mode. You're not in proactive mode, creation mode. You're in reactive mode. So as we tie this all together, there's been so much incredible value that's been brought, hopefully, that the listeners can take away from. For those out there that want to follow you, that want to check you out, that want to be part of the 8% Nation, where do they need to go? Where should they subscribe? Where should they take out their phone if they're not driving?
Yeah, I would say that the first place is, I would say, if you're in insurance and you want to see some insurance, videos and sales training, that kind of stuff, or YouTube, Cody Askins. If you're just wanting to see, some everyday life stuff and follow someone on their journey and message me whenever, I would say Instagram, which is at Cody.Askins, which, you've tagged me in some stuff and we've messaged a little bit, so I would say that's something I've actually started to use more really just this year. So.
Awesome. All right. So for everybody out there, please make sure to download and subscribe to the You Winning Life podcast. You can check out us on Instagram at Jason Wasser LMFT. You just heard where you can track down Cody, and you can also check out our website, thefamilyroomsfl.com. And that's where all our therapy and our coaching and all the other good stuff, integrative medicine and natural medicine and our chiropractic, the whole stuff that we're trying to take care of to minimize your stressors and to maximize your potential. Cody, really, once again, I really want to thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much, dude. Awesome interview, and thank you for having me. I'm truly honored, and I had an absolute blast.
Thanks, my man.
You didn't put me on your podcast and say, tell me about yourself. There's something about an interview where the first 10 minutes is just me vomiting my history and my life. I liked that you not only had all these amazing questions, but it was like pinpointing, periods and trying to extrapolate content and nuggets from that. So I thought that was awesome. I thought it was good.
Well, one of the benefits, first of all, thank you. I grew up not being a public speaker, and I'd rather have failed. And I took F's in class in middle school and elementary school instead of presenting. So this high school, I was involved in my youth group in my synagogue, got on a board position, and that kind of gave me a little bit of a healthy ego. But I don't want this just to be like, okay, I have some time to spend with this guy who I just met. I want there to be value for the people I'm spending the time with. And one of the great things is, as you've met Billy, is that he does some really amazing production jobs. So everything that I get, you're going to get into a Dropbox. So you're going to get the whole video, you're going to get the whole audio, you're going to get all the social clips. So you can use that for yourself. And that's just right. Everything I'm going to get that I'm paying for, I'm going to give to each of my guests.
Wow. Thank you, buddy.
So it's nothing in the piece of the greater scheme, but I want it to be as usable for you to represent yourself on your side of the world as it could be for me to help share the wisdom.
That's
that I want.
awesome.
So thank you.
Dylan, he's gonna put all this in the Dropbox folder and share it with us. So we'll make sure we. Is it okay if we use it and post it and whatever else?
Yeah, and I'll give you the links of tagging the show when it comes out, all that stuff, so you can link it back there just for the show things. But whatever way you want to use it for yourself, feel free to to go do that.
Cool, buddy. So, thank you, man. That's great.
Thank you.
I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. Right. Hey, also, is there anything I can do for you? Any way I can return the favor?
I'll think about it.
Yeah, please.
Think about it. I mean, just the fact that you were able to spend this time with me really was meaningful to me.
Good, man.
This is part of my journey. of getting out there and doing this. And I know I want to do more workshops and conferences. And I've done speaking in the Jewish community mostly, and some schools and local colleges and stuff like that. But it's like watching what Evan put together.
Mm-hmm.
The largest group I've spoken for was 3,000 or 4,000 people. And
Wow.
I was the informal rabbi at a community service for the Jewish high holidays. And that was when I was 23, and it was giving the sermon, right? So that was the community overflow service that was sponsored by the Jewish Federation in South Florida. But I do workshops and retreats for young professionals all the time, and it'll be groups, but I'm like, when I'm with Evan, when I'm with you guys and Rocky, I'm like, what am I missing? Where's my platform that I'm not doing? And part of this is the podcast, but it's still self-contained. I think maybe brainstorming down the road to create my own, not necessarily my own thing, but like, how do I recreate what you're doing, what Evan's doing, what Rocky's doing? Because it really is what Coach Bert's doing, because I don't have the massive funding to do it.
Yeah.
But it's just getting my name out. I don't have time to, eventually I'm going to do something with Billy and maybe with Evan to do my own courses. But I don't have the structure and I don't have the time to do it because I'm so busy seeing clients just to cover. So I don't have that space in the staff yet to get there.
Totally. Wow.
So maybe it's reverse engineering that down the road as it comes, when it pops up into your mind when you're sitting in the pool.
Yeah. Well, I'm able to help any way I can, buddy. I'm grateful you had me on. I was a blast. It's actually one of my favorite things to do. Without sounding arrogant, I prefer to be interviewed rather than being the interviewer. So
yeah, no, it was awesome. It was just, and that's why, again, like I focused on those very tangible, practical things. Cause I know when I heard you speak, especially that day, it was like your story was I connected a lot to that story of what you went through. And it's just like, what am I, how did this happen? How did I get here? How did I take these risks? Why did I take these risks? And I think that's a big part of our process of growing as humans is the risks to success, not the risks of failure. So thanks.
Yeah. That's it, man. Thank you.
Brother.
Wow.
All right. So kick some butt over there.
You too, man. Thank you so much again.
We'll talk soon. I'll keep you posted on everything.
You too. Thanks, bro.
Bye.